The immortal warrior queen spared him in battle. She's now his overbearing mentor. Lieutenant Brady crouched behind the twisted metal, barricade his breathing harsh in the filtered mask as columns of smoke rose around him. The battlefield, once a thriving colony outpost, lay in ruins. His squad had been reduced to 14 soldiers, all that remained of the Terran 33rd Expeditionary Force on this godforsaken moon. Status report, Brady whispered into his calm, the taste of blood metallic in his mouth. The wound across his ribs burned with each breath, but he pushed the pain aside. East perimeter breach imminent, sir, came the strained voice of Private Wilkes. They're toying with us. Now Brady knew she was right. The Immortals could have overwhelmed them hours ago, but they preferred to savor human fear. He'd seen it on too many battlefields, the way they drew out conflicts, feeding on the desperation of species with finite lives and limited time. All units converge on my position, Brady ordered. We make our stand here. He checked his modified pulse rifle, the experimental weapon hot to the touch. Even through his tactical gloves, the conventional arms had proven nearly useless against immortal physiology. But Brady had worked with Dr. West to recalibrate the harmonic frequency theory, suggested it might disrupt their cellular regeneration if they could land a solid hit. A sound like distant thunder rolled across the ruined landscape, and Brady felt it in his bones before he heard it. The war drums of the Immortal Legion. Their soldiers marched in perfect unison, each step landing with precision. Developed over thousands of years of conquest, lieutenant movement on the ridge, Sergeant Torres reported, her voice steady despite everything. It's her. Brady's heart hammered against his ribs. As he raised his tactical binoculars, the immortal forces parted like a dark sea, creating a path for their leader. Queen Nyx strode onto the battlefield with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. Her armor gleamed obsidian against the fiery backdrop, intricate patterns etched into metal that no human foundry could forge. Her face remained partly concealed behind a crested helm, but Brady could see her eyes, ancient, predatory, luminescent in the smoky twilight. Hold positions, Brady whispered. Though every instinct screamed at him to retreat, wait for my mark. The immortal queen raised her hand, and her legion halted in perfect synchronization. Your resistance ends here, humans. Her voice carried across the battlefield without apparent amplification, rich and musical, yet devoid of mercy. Surrender, and I may preserve some of you as curiosities. Brady tightened his grip on his weapon defensive formation. Theta, he instructed his squad through the cal. Remember the plan. The remaining soldiers fanned out behind various pieces of cover. Their movements practiced despite exhaustion. Brady had drilled them relentlessly on this tactic, unorthodox and desperate, precisely because the Immortals would never expect it. Conventional military doctrine had failed humanity for decades against these enemies. Queen Nyx began to advance alone, her double-bladed glaive resting casually across her shoulders each step. She released small pulses of energy that rippled through the ground, a display of power meant to intimidate. Your species fascinates me, she called out, her gaze sweeping the ruins where Brady's soldiers hid such brief lives. Yet you fight as though you have eternities ahead of you. Brady waited until she was 30 m from their position before giving the signal. Now, his soldiers emerged simultaneously from different positions, firing in precisely timed intervals. The queen moved with supernatural speed, her glaive spinning to reflect most of the energy pulses, but the pattern of fire wasn't meant to hit her directly. It was designed to control her movement, herding her toward Brady's position. She realized the trap too late as she pivoted to address the threat. From 3 directions, Brady emerged from his concealment and fired a single shot from his modified weapon. The pulse struck her in the shoulder, and for the first time in recorded combat history, an immortal warrior stumbled. Queen Nyx's eyes widened in genuine surprise as a spiderweb of golden cracks appeared across her armor at the impact site. Brady didn't waste the moment. He fired again, advancing even As his squad maintained suppressive fire from multiple angles, the immortal queen recovered with frightening speed. Her glaive became a blur of motion, and 3 of Brady's soldiers fell in rapid succession. She moved toward him with deadly purpose, her eyes locked on his. The frequency modulation. Brady shouted to his remaining squad, switched to pattern Delta. They adjusted their weapons, creating a crossfire that briefly trapped the queen in a network of energy. Brady seized the opportunity. Closing distance in a move that Commander Hansen would have called suicidal, he activated the bayonet attachment on his rifle, another of Dr. West's innovations, and thrust it toward the queen's midsection. Queen Nyx caught his wrist with inhuman strength, her grip threatening to shatter bone. This close, Brady could see her face fully, features of unearthly perfection, unmarred by time or hardship, her eyes shifting through impossible colors. She seemed both youthful and ancient, beautiful and terrible. Interesting, she said, her voice softer now as she studied him. Her blood trickled from where his first shot had connected. You actually wounded me. Brady struggled against her grip, knowing he had seconds before she killed him. Just returning the favor for my home world, he snarled, triggering his final contingency, the explosive charges his team had planted throughout the ruins detonated in sequence, not to harm the immortals, but to release the experimental nanite cloud, another untested weapon that might disrupt immortal communication systems. In the chaos that followed, Brady twisted free and slashed with the energy bayonet, scoring a shallow cut across the queen's forearm. Her expression shifted from mild curiosity to genuine interest. Enough, she said, moving faster than human eyes could track. Brady felt the impact before he registered the movement. His weapon clattered away, and he found himself on his knees, the queen's glaive at his throat. Around them, the remaining human soldiers were quickly subdued by immortal warriors who had watched the confrontation with detached amusement. Execute them all, ordered a tall immortal at the queen's side. Clearly, her Lieutenant Brady met Queen Nyx's gaze defiantly, expecting the killing blow. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, studying him as one might examine an unusual specimen. No, she said. Finally, this one comes with us, my queen, the lieutenant protested. Hunes, just another human, they expire so quickly. This one wounded me, Thorn, she replied, her voice carrying a warning. I want to understand how Brady's mind raced. Capture by immortals was a fate worse than death. Though the stories of their experimentation chambers had haunted soldier nightmares since first contact. Kill me now, Brady demanded. I won't be your lab rat. Queen Nyx's lips curved into something almost resembling a smile. You misunderstand your situation, human. You're not to be my specimen. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Meant only for him. You're to be my student. Before Brady could process her words, she struck him with the blunt end of her weapon, and darkness claimed him. Brady awakened in a chamber that defied human architecture. Arched ceilings soared impossibly high, the walls of material that seemed to shift between solid metal and translucent crystal. No visible seams or joints marred the flowing design, a reminder that immortal technology had evolved over millennia, while humanity was still discovering fire. He sat up, cautiously surprised to find his wounds treated. The deep gash across his ribs had been sealed with something that glimmered faintly. His combat armor had been removed, replaced with a simple gray bodysuit that fitted too perfectly to have been manufactured without precise measurements. The prisoner is conscious, my queen, announced a voice from the doorway. Brady turned to see Thorn, the queen's bodyguard, his posture radiating contempt. Behind him stood Queen Nyx, now dressed in attire less martial, but no less intimidating. Without her battle armor, she appeared more feminine, but somehow more dangerous, like a predator that no longer needed camouflage. Leave us, she commanded. Thorn hesitated. The council advises against. I didn't ask for the council's opinion, Nyx interrupted, her voice soft, but carrying an edge that made even the immortal warrior stiffen. Leave us. After Thorn departed, Nyx approached Brady with measured steps. Up close, without the chaos of battle around them, Brady could Better appreciate the alienness of her beauty. Her skin held a subtle luminescence, her movements fluid in a way human physiology couldn't replicate, her hair black, with strands that caught. Light like filaments of silver was intricately braided away from her face. "You should have killed me," Brady said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "Perhaps," she agreed, circling him with casual grace. "It would have been simpler." Brady tracked her movement, unwilling to show weakness by turning his back on her. "What do you want from me?" "I've conquered 87 worlds across 12 star systems," Nick said, ignoring his question. "I've faced warriors from species your kind hasn't even encountered, yet none have managed what you did." Yesterday, Lucky shot. Her laugh was unexpected, a sound like crystal chimes. "We both know better. Your tactics were unconventional, your weapon modifications clever. You adapted to immortal fighting patterns instead of following predictable human military docked." She stopped directly before him, her eyes shifting through colors, amber to violet to a blue, so deep it seemed to hold galaxies. "How long have you been studying us?" Brady considered lying, but suspected she would know. 3 years after your forces decimated the Proxima colonies. 3 years, she repeated, seeming genuinely surprised. "A mere moment, yet you developed countermeasures that our tacticians with their 1,000-year perspectives didn't anticipate. Humans adapt quickly. We don't have millennia to perfect our methods." Nick nodded slowly. "That's precisely why you're here. Your species' perspective is useful." A door opened in what Brady had assumed was solid wall, and 2 immortal guards entered, flanking a thin human man with haunted eyes. "This is Specialist NATO captured a Ganom." Nix gestured dismissively. "He's been quite eager to share human military secrets in exchange for comfortable accommodation." Nat avoided Brady's gaze, his shoulders hunched with the posture of someone broken. Brady felt rage building. "I'm not a traitor. I'm not asking you to be." Nix countered. "You misunderstand your purpose here, Lieutenant Brady. I don't need another informant. I need someone who thinks differently, someone who can see weaknesses where we've become blind through routine and tradition." She waved, "And the guards removed your fellow human disgusts you doesn't. His weakness, his betrayal," Brady corrected. "Fear is understandable. Selling out your own people isn't. And yet here you stand about to train under an immortal queen." Her smile held no warmth. "How is that not betrayal? I haven't agreed to anything." Nix moved to a control panel that materialized at her touch. A holographic display sprung to life, showing Brady's remaining squad members in containment cells. "You have a choice," she said simply. "Become my student, learn our ways while teaching me your innovative methods, or watch your people suffer before they die one by one." Brady's hands clenched. "That's not a choice, it's the only one you get." She deactivated the display. "I am offering you something no human has ever received: direct instruction in immortal combat arts, knowledge your kind has sought for generations." Why Brady demanded what could possibly be worth the risk of training a human. Nix's expression changed subtly. "In 10,000 years, one grows tired of perfection, Lieutenant. Your people call us immortals, but we're merely very difficult to kill, and difficulty is not impossibility." She moved to a weapon rack that appeared seamlessly from the wall. "The wound you inflicted will heal, but the technique that interests me, stagnation, is the true enemy of immortality. Fresh perspectives keep us vital." Brady processed her words carefully. "And if I refuse, then of no use to me?" Her tone suggested the outcome of uselessness was obvious. Brady thought of his squad of Wilkes with her new baby back on Earth, of Tors, who had survived 3 campaigns already. He thought of what Commander Hansen would say about fraternizing with the enemy, but he also thought about what he might learn, knowledge that could ultimately help humanity. "When do we start?" he asked finally. A satisfied smile curled her lips. "We already have the chamber's configuration shifted around them, walls flowing like liquid metal, until they stood in what appeared to be a training arena. Along one wall hung weapons Brady had seen immortals wield on battlefields across the galaxy. Your first lesson," Nick said, Tossing him a staff of unfamiliar material that hummed faintly in his grip is to survive the next hour without. Warning, she attacked, moving with fluid grace that bellied her lethal intent. Brady barely managed to raise the staff to block her first strike, the impact shuddering through his. Bones lesson 2, she continued, as if they were having a casual conversation rather than combat, is understanding why. I chose you over thousands of other humans I've killed. Her next strike swept his legs from under him, sending him crashing to the floor. I suspect, Brady grunted, rolling away from a blow that would have shattered his collarbone. It's because I'm too stubborn to die. Easily for the first time, something genuine flickered in Nix's ancient eyes. Amusement? No, Lieutenant Brady, she said. It's because you're the first human who made me bleed in 10 centuries. Days blurred into weeks as Brady trained under Nix's merciless tutelage. Every morning began before dawn and ended long after his muscles screamed for relief. Today marked their 30th combat that session, and Brady had yet to land a single hit on her since their battlefield encounter. Your form improves, Nix remarked, circling him in the training arena. But you still telegraph your intentions. Brady adjusted his grip on the practice blade, sweat trickling down his spine, the weapon lighter than it appeared yet devastatingly effective, had become an extension of his arm through relentless drills. Perhaps I'm letting you see what I want you to see, Brady countered, implementing a feint he'd been practicing. Privately, Nix's eyebrow arched slightly, the closest thing to surprise he'd managed to elicit from her. She moved with liquid grace, stepping his true attack with millimeters to spare. Better, she acknowledged, her body pressed momentarily against his as she countered. The contact sent an unexpected heat through him that had nothing to do with exertion. Brady disengaged, disturbed by his reaction. Her proximity carried a scent he couldn't identify, something ancient and vaguely floral, yet metallic. It clouded his concentration in ways tactical training hadn't prepared him for. The other immortals question your judgment, Brady said, attempting to distract himself. As they circled each other, I hear the whispers when Velik visits. Velik has served as advisor through 12 centuries and 4 wars, Nix replied, launching a series of strikes that forced Brady backward. He belied leaves. Humans are temporary nuisances, best eliminated efficiently. Brady parried desperately, finding rhythm in her attack pattern. And you disagree? I've watched your species evolve from primitive tool users to interstellar travelers in a heartbeat of cosmic time, she said, her blade whispering past his ear. Your adaptability is remarkable. Brady saw an opening and committed, fully twisting in a maneuver that combined immortal technique with human boxing footwork. His blade slipped past her defense, touching the fabric at her waist. They froze, both surprised by his success. You combined forms, she said, genuine curiosity in her voice. Immortal stance, human footwork, Brady confirmed, suddenly aware of their closeness. Your techniques assume opponents with regenerative capabilities and millennia of identical training. Nick stepped back, studying him with those shifting eyes. Show me again. For the next hour, Brady demonstrated hybrid maneuvers, mortal desperation married to immortal precision. With each demonstration, Nix's expression grew more intense, more focused on him. Enough, she finally called, sheathing her practice blade. You've earned rest. As Brady moved to leave, Nix placed a hand on his shoulder. Her touch lingered longer than necessary, her immortal skin cool against his overheated flesh. Tomorrow, she said quietly, I will show you something no human has said seen. That night, lying on his Spartan bed, Brady struggled with conflicting emotions. His fellow prisoners refused to meet his eyes, believing he'd betrayed humanity. Yet with each passing day, the line between captor and mentor, between enemy and something else, blurred further. He traced the scar on his ribs, the wound NXS had treated personally. The strange material she'd used had left a mark that sometimes seemed to glow faintly in darkness, as though a piece of her immortal essence had transferred to him. Dangerous thoughts for a soldier whose duty remained clear: learn, survive, escape, and bring vital intelligence back to humanity. Yet when he closed his eyes, It was Nix's face he saw not as the enemy, but as something far more. Complicated days blurred into weeks as Brady trained under Nix's merciless. Tutelage every morning began before dawn and ended long after his muscles screamed for relief. Today marked their 30th combat session, and Brady had yet to land a single hit on her since their battlefield. "Encounter your form improves," Nix remarked, circling him in the training arena, "but you still telegraph your intentions." Brady adjusted his grip on the practice blade, sweat trickling down his spine, the weapon lighter than it appeared yet devastatingly effective, had become an extension of his arm through relentless drills. "Perhaps I'm letting you see what I want you to see," Brady countered, implementing a feint he'd been practicing privately. Nix's eyebrow arched slightly, the closest thing to surprise he'd managed to elicit from her. She moved with liquid grace, sidest, stepping his true attack with millimeters to spare. Better, she acknowledged, her body pressed momentarily against his as she countered. The contact sent an unexpected heat through him that had nothing to do with exertion. Brady disengaged, disturbed by his reaction. Her proximity carried a scent he couldn't identify, something ancient and vaguely floral, yet metallic. It clouded his concentration in ways tactical training hadn't prepared him for. "The other immortals question your judgment," Brady said, attempting to distract himself. As they circled each other, "I hear the whispers when Velik visits." Velik has served as advisor through 12 centuries and 4 wars, Nix replied, launching a series of strikes that forced Brady backward. "He believes humans are temporary nuisances, best eliminated efficiently." Brady parried desperately, finding rhythm in her attack pattern. "And you disagree? I've watched your species evolve from primitive tool users to interstellar travelers in a heartbeat of cosmic time," she said, her blade whispering past his ear. "Your adaptability is remarkable." Brady saw an opening and committed, fully twisting in a maneuver that combined immortal technique with boxing footwork. His blade slipped past her defense, touching the fabric at her waist. They froze, both surprised by his success. "You combined forms," she said, genuine curiosity in her voice. "Immortal stance, human footwork," Brady confirmed, suddenly aware of their closeness. "Your techniques assume opponents with regenerative capabilities and millennia of identical training." Nix stepped back, studying him with those shifting eyes. "Show me again." For the next hour, Brady demonstrated hybrid maneuvers, mortal desperation, married to immortal precision. With each demonstration, Nix's expression grew more intense, more focused on him. "Enough," she finally called, sheathing her practice blade. "You've earned rest." As Brady moved to leave, Nix placed a hand on his shoulder. Her touch lingered longer than necessary, her immortal skin cool against his overheated flesh. "Tomorrow," she said quietly, "I will show you something no human has seen." That night, lying on his Spartan bed, Brady struggled with conflicting emotions. His fellow prisoners refused to meet his eyes, believing he'd betrayed humanity. Yet with each passing day, the line between captor and mentor, between enemy and something else, blurred further. He traced the scar on his ribs, the wound Nix had treated personally. The strange material she'd used had left a mark that sometimes seemed to glow faintly in darkness, as though a piece of her immortal essence had transferred to him. Dangerous thoughts for a soldier whose duty remained clear: learn, survive, escape, and bring vital intelligence back to humanity. Yet when he closed his eyes, it was Nix's face he saw, not as the enemy, but as something far more complicated. The holographic battle simulation shimmered between them. Immortal forces represented by golden light, human defenders by blue. Brady manipulated the projection with practiced gestures, demonstrating a flanking maneuver that contradicted conventional immortal doctrine. "Your approach lost resources," Nix observed. Circling the display, the regeneration episode had changed something between them. Her imperious tone remained, but underlying warmth colored their interactions. "Now, it appears wasteful to immortal eyes," Brady explained, adjusting the formation. "Human commanders value individual lives differently than immortals do, but there's tactical advantage in that difference." he demonstrated how humans would sacrifice position for personnel extraction, creating patterns immortals mistook for retreat. You see weakness, we see preservation of specialized knowledge and skills. Nix's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Show me again, their heads bent close over the simulation. Brady, acutely aware of her scent of the slight warmth radiating from her immortal form, since witnessing her regeneration, he found himself noticing these details. With maddening frequency, your Lord Karen approaches. Thorne announced from the doorway, his expression disapproving. As he observed their proximity, Brady stepped back from Nix. As the rival commander entered, Ken moved with lethal grace, his ancient eyes assessing Brady with undisguised contempt. The council requires your presence, my queen. Kian said deliberately. Ignoring Brady, the human resistance grows troublesome in the outer colonies. They've adapted their weapons similarly to this specimen's innovations. Brady kept his expression neutral, despite the surge of pride. Dr. West and Commander Hansen must have implemented his designs across the fleet. Lieutenant Brady will accompany us, Nick declared, causing both Carrion and Thorne to stiffen in surprise. A human in council chambers. Kian's voice dripped disdain. You indulge your pet too freely. Enax, she moved with blinding speed, her hand at Kian's throat. Before Brady registered her movement, challenge me directly or hold your tongue. Ken, do not test boundaries. You cannot survive crossing the council chamber. Stunned Brady with its scale, a vast cathedral-like space, where 12 immortal elders presided from crystalline platforms, their eyes all older than Nix's, tracked him with predatory focus. You bring human contamination to our sacred space. Elder Zafira stated, her voice carrying the weight of millennia. Explain yourself, Queen. Nix, I bring tactical insight. Nix countered. The human resistance employs new methodologies. Brady understands their approach in ways we cannot. For the next hour, Brady found himself explaining human military philosophy to beings who had conquered galaxies before his ancestors discovered agriculture. He demonstrated adaptation principles, showed how finite lifespans created urgency that drove innovation. Immortality breeds complacency. He concluded boldly, you fight as you have for thousands of years, because it has always worked. Humans fight as though each battle could be their last, because it might be. Silence fell across the chamber, immortal faces unreadable. Then came the alarms. Human forces have breached the outer defenses, Thorne reported, rushing into the chamber. They utilize unfamiliar energy signatures. Brady recognized the description of his weapon modifications. Commander Hansen had launched a rescue mission. That Go. Nix turned to him, her eyes searching his. Did you know of this? No, he answered truthfully. But I'm not surprised humans don't abandon their own. For a heartbeat. Indecision crossed her face, an expression he'd never witnessed on her immortal features. Then resolution hardened her gaze. You will help repel this attack, she commanded, though it sounded almost like a question. Brady faced an impossible choice. Voice, betray his people or betray the woman who had become far more than his captor. The realization struck him with stunning clarity. Somewhere between combat lessons and shared vulnerabilities, Nix had become essential to him. I'll help you, he said. Finally, but only to prevent needless deaths on both sides. It's time for a different approach to this war. Something like relief flickered across Nix's features. Together, they strove from the council chamber toward a battlefield that would test not only their combined tactical genius, but the fragile connection forming between immortal and human. The battle had ended with minimal casualties, a testament to Brady's hybrid tactics and Nix's willingness to implement them. Human forces retreated after Brady appeared at Nix's side, confusion evident in their transmissions. Commander Hansen's voice had crackled through captured communications, promising to return for him. Now Brady stood beside Nick in her private chambers, as Velik paced before them, agitation evident in his normally composed demeanor. The council questions your judgment, my queen. Velik said, his ancient eyes flicking dismissively toward Brady. First you train this human, then you bring him to council chambers. Now you incorporate his primitive strategies into immortal battle doctrine strategies that prevented unnecessary losses. Nix countered on both sides. Losses are irrelevant. Victory is absolute. Vunk voice hardened. Some suspect your regeneration cycle affects your reasoning. Perhaps you should step aside temporarily. Brady tensed, recognizing the political maneuvering. For what it was, the beginnings of a coup, he had witnessed too many immortals watching. Nix with calculating eyes during the battle's aftermath. My reasoning remains intact. Nix replied, her tone dangerous. Leave us, Velik. After the advisor departed, Nix's composure faltered lightly. She moved to a crystalline viewport, overlooking her domain's shoulders uncharacteristically tense. The regeneration cycle left you vulnerable. Brady observed quietly, not just physically. She glanced at him sharply. You understand more than you should. I've spent months studying you, he replied, moving closer, both as an enemy and as something else, she repeated softly, turning to face him fully. What would you call it, Lieutenant Brady? The formality of his title contrasted with the intimate tone of her voice. Brady closed the distance between them, caution abandoned in the face of truth. He could no longer deny something neither of us expected, he answered, reaching tentatively to touch her face. Nix remained perfectly still, allowing his fingers to trace the flawless contours of her cheek. Despite her power and age, she seemed suddenly uncertain in this unfamiliar territory. Human lives are momentary, she whispered, a heartbeat in the span of immortal existence. Perhaps that's what makes them valuable, Brady countered. We live fully because we must. Her hand rose to cover his immortal skin, cool against his warmth. Show me, she commanded softly. Brady kissed her with the intensity of emotion built over months of combat lessons, shared vulnerabilities, and growing trust. She responded with initial hesitation that quickly transformed into possessive hunger, centuries of control, yielding to something primal and urgent. When they finally separated, her eyes had shifted to a color he'd never witnessed, a deep violet that seemed to hold galaxies. This complicates matters, she murmured, though she made no move to increase the distance between them. I excel at complicated, Brady replied, his hand still cradling her face. A sound at the chamber entrance interrupted them. Thorn stood rigid in the doorway, shock briefly visible before his immortal features resumed their customary stoicism. Lord Kian has called for an emergency council session, he reported, eyes deliberately fixed above their heads. He questions the Queen's fitness to command after today's unusual battle strategy. Nix stepped away from Brady, her regal bearing reasserting itself. Inform the council I will attend shortly. When Thorn departed, she turned back to Brady. The court will use this against me, against us. Then we give them something else to focus on. Brady suggested a new approach to the war that benefits both sides. She studied him with those ancient eyes, now returned to their normal shifting hues. You have something specific in mind? I do, he confirmed, but it requires you to trust a human completely. Her lips curved into a smile that transformed her face, making her appear almost young despite her millennia. It seems I already do. The shuttle descended through atmosphere, immortal technology, rendering its passage silent despite the friction of reentry. Brady sat beside Nix, both dressed in battle armor modified according to his specifications, a hybrid of human mobility and immortal protection. Your commander Hansen will likely shoot first and ask questions. Never. Nix observed her hand briefly touching his. Probably, Brady agreed, but Captain Reynolds will listen, she always believed. Diplomacy remained possible. After weeks of preparation and political maneuvering, they had convinced the Immortal Council to attempt direct negotiation. Barely. Lord Kian and his faction remained openly hostile, while Elder Zira provided crucial support, referencing ancient protocols for species integration that hadn't been invoked in millennia. Brady felt the weight of his modified weapon against his thigh, the same design that had wounded NCKS months ago. She had insisted he remain armed. Show of trust that spoke volumes to both humans and immortals, the shuttle landed. At the arranged coordinates, a devastated colony outpost that had once been home to 10,000 human settlers, now it served. As neutral ground for an unprecedented meeting, they've honored the ceasefire. Thorne reported grudgingly scanning tactical displays. Human forces maintain position. Beyond the ridge, Brady and Nix exited the shuttle together, an immortal queen, and her human student standing as equals on contested soil within minutes. Human transports appeared on the horizon. Ready, Brady asked quietly. Nix's hand brushed his briefly. We faced worse odds. Commander Hansen emerged from the lead vehicle, his weathered face rigid. With suspicion beside him stood Captain Reynolds and Dr. West, the latter's eyes widening at the sight of Brady. In modified immortal armor, Lieutenant Brady hands called his hand hovering near his sidearm, standing with the enemy, now standing for A. Solution, Sir. Brady replied, stepping forward. Queen Nick has agreed to direct negotiation, the first in this wars. History. Hansen's eyes narrowed, and we're supposed to trust the word of an immortal. No, Nix interjected, her voice carrying across the battlefield. Trust the word of the man who served under you with honor, the man who found a way to wound me and then chose a path besides killing. Captain Reynolds moved forward. Cautiously, is it true you've implemented Brady's tactical suggestions, that casualties have decreased on both sides? They have. Nix confirmed. Your lieutenant has proven that adaptation is possible, even for those who believe themselves beyond change. The meeting proceeded with tense formality. Brady bridged the gap between species that had known only warfare for generations, translating immortal concepts into human terms and explaining human motivations to beings who measured time in centuries. As negotiations progressed, Brady became acutely aware of how he straddled both worlds, now no longer fully aligned with either side, yet crucial to both. His gaze met Nix's across the improvised conference table. Silent understanding passing between them hours later as twilight descended. Preliminary terms had been established, not peace that would require more than one meeting, but a framework for continued dialogue. As human forces prepared to depart, Dr. West approached Brady. Privately, the modifications to your cellular structure, she said, quietly examining him with scientific curiosity. They're progressing. Brady tensed. What modifications? The wound on your ribs, she clarified, gesturing to where Nix had treated him months ago. Whatever she used is still active, still changing you at the molecular level. I can detect it, even without equipment. Before Brady could process this revelation, Commander Hansen joined them. You're coming back with us, he stated firmly. That's an order. Lieutenant Brady looked past him to where Nick stood with Thorne, her expression carefully neutral, though her eyes remained fixed on him. With respect, Sir. Brady replied, I'm more valuable. Continuing as intermediary, the trust we've established is fragile. Hansen studied him closely. Is it just duty keeping you at her side? Brady. The question hung between them, demanding honesty. Brady wasn't sure either of them was ready to hear. It's the future, he answered finally, hers and ours intertwined, whether we want it or not. As human forces retreated and immortals prepared for departure, Brady and NY found themselves momentarily alone amidst battle-scarred ruins. Your doctor suspects something, Nix observed. Brady nodded. The treatment you used on my wound, she says it's changing me. All contact leaves marks, Nix replied enigmatically, her fingers tracing the scar through his armor, some more lasting than others. The immortal palace gardens stretched before them, bioluminescent flora casting ethereal light across ancient stone paths. Brady walked beside Nix, their shoulders occasionally brushing casual contact that once would have been unthinkable between human and immortal. 3 more outposts have agreed to the arm, Brady reported. Captain Reynolds has been instrumental in bringing skeptical commanders on board, while Lord Karen cultivates dissent among my generals. Nix responded, peace threatens power structures maintained from millennia. 2 months had passed since their historic meeting on the battlefield. Brady now held the unprecedented position of official human liaison to the Immortal Court, a role that placed him directly in Keon's crosshairs. Dr. West sent her findings, Brady said, changing the subject as they reached a secluded alcove. Cellular changes are accelerating Nix's expression. Titan Brady extended his arm where the golden tracery, similar to Nix's. Regenerative patterns had begun spreading from his original wound. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing luminescent lines that pulsed faintly beneath his skin. Nix traced the patterns with cool fingers, her touch sending awareness through him. The healing compound was never meant for human physiology. I had no choice. You would have died otherwise. And now Brady asked, what am I becoming? Her eyes met his ancient and troubled. I don't know. No human has ever carried a mortal essence this long. Brady captured her hand against his skin, holding it there. I'm not afraid you should be. Her voice grew unusually soft. I am the admission. Unprecedented Eid from the immortal queen hung between them. Brady stepped closer, eliminating the remaining distance. Because you care what happens to me, he stated rather than asked. Because I've watched countless beings live and die, she countered, though she made no move to retreat. I've learned detachment as survival with you, with me, with you. Detachment proves difficult. Brady brushed a strand of her midnight hair back, marveling at how this being ancient and powerful beyond human comprehension could seem suddenly vulnerable beneath his touch. Perhaps that's mortality's gift to immortals, he suggested, reminding you what it means to value time because it's finite. Her lips curved slightly. You've become philosophical in your diplomatic role. I've had an exceptional teacher. A shadow passed overhead, a patrol craft moving too quickly for routine surveillance. Brady's instincts, honed through war and Nix's training, immediately tensed. Something's wrong, he murmured. The warning came too late. Energy weapons discharged from multiple positions, concentrated beams targeting Brady with precision. Nix moved with immortal speed, placing herself between him and the assault, but even her reflexes couldn't intercept every shot. White-hot pain lanced through Brady's shoulder. As one beam penetrated their defenses, he fell back. Nix's arms supporting him as additional immortal guards converged on their position. Carrion, Nix hissed, ray transforming her features as she assessed Brady's wound. Brady fought through pain-induced disorientation. The treaty negotiations mean nothing if you die. She finished, her hand covering his wound. Through pain-blurred vision, Brady witnessed something unprecedented. Golden light flowing from Nix's palm into his injury, her immortal essence deliberately transferring to him. Her face showed strain, the process clearly taking tremendous effort. Stop, he gasped, recognizing the sacrifice. Your regeneration cycle will come sooner, she acknowledged, continuing despite his protest. But you will live as golden light sealed his wound. Brady felt the connection between them deepen beyond physical healing, something fundamental changing in both their cellular structures, immortal and human. Blending at the molecular level, Thorne arrived with a security contingent. His expression grave. Lord Keon has seized the council chamber. He claims you've been compromised by human influence. Nix rose, helping Brady to his feet. The wound had closed, but golden tracery spread visibly from the impact point, accelerating the transformation already underway in his system. Compromised, she repeated, righteous fury in her tone. I've been awakened. Brady steadied himself, the immortal essence within him responding to proximity with its source. With Nix, what happens now? Her eyes met his determination, replacing vulnerability. Now we show them what human ingenuity and immortal power can accomplish. Together, the council chamber had transformed into a battleground. Karen, supporters positioned themselves strategically throughout the vast space, energy weapons trained on the entrance. They hadn't expected Brady and Nix to approach from above. Remember the pattern, Brady whispered as they navigated maintenance conduits. He memorized during his months of captivity hybrid tactics. They won't anticipate the combination. NX moved with lethal grace. Beside him, their movements synchronized. Through countless training sessions, The golden tracery beneath Brady's skin pulsed in proximity to her, lending him strength and speed beyond normal human capability. Below them, Lord Carrion addressed his assembled forces. The Queen's human pet has corrupted her. The regeneration cycle approaches leaving her vulnerable. Today we reclaim immortal purity and end this misguided peace now. Brady signaled. They dropped simultaneously through access panels, landing in perfect formation. Back. Brady's modified weapon discharged concussive bursts that incapacitated. Without killing a human innovation Nyx had approved for this confrontation, she wielded her glaive with measured precision, disarming rather than dismembering opponents. Karen Nyx's voice carried imperial authority that froze combatants mid-motion. You dishonor millennia of immortal tradition with this insurrection. The rebel commander advanced, his ancient eyes fixated on Brady. You brought human contamination into our sacred halls. The evidence marks his flesh and yours. Brady noticed immortal quarters staring at the visible golden pattern spreading across his exposed skin, whispering among themselves. Not contamination. Nyx corrected, her shoulder pressed against Brady's evolution. Karen's laugh held genuine amusement. You would elevate this momentary creature. He will be dust while we continue. Eternal, perhaps not. Elder Zephyra emerged from the shadows, her ancient form commanding instant respect. The cellular transformation progresses uniquely in this human. The melding of immortal essence with human adaptability creates something unprecedented. Brady felt all eyes shift to him. Immortal gazes assessing the changes visibly occurring in his physiology. Abomination, Kion declared, signaling his forces to attack. The battle exploded across the chamber. Immortal against immortal, with Brady fighting alongside. Nyx's body responded with new awareness, strength, and reflexes augmented by the golden energy flowing through his system. They fought as one entity, covering each other's vulnerabilities. With practiced precision, Brady implemented techniques no immortal had encountered. Human adaptability combined with immortal power. Nyx executed maneuvers that complemented his movements perfectly. Their combat partnership transcending teacher and student. The Queen's regeneration